This conference will now be recorded.
So, thanks for waiting. I don't think so. It's a good morning for me. Well, so let's start the session straight away. So it's been 1 hour. We have been waiting for this. Well, so what are the different services we've gone through last session? Volumes, EBS. So block storage, elastic block storage. Well, so why we call it elastic bean stack? Sorry, why we call it block storage? So why we call it elastic bean stack? Sorry, elastic block storage. I'm sorry. So what is the purpose of what is that meaning of elastic? Yeah, it can be volumes can be modified, right? So the size can be modified, or we can attach some volumes, detach volumes, right? We can do all these things. That's why we call it elastic. So now we have seen how to modify these volumes for primary as well as secondary. Well, and so after that we have gone through CloudWatch services. So what's the purpose of CloudWatch? Yeah, if you want to monitor the performance, so or else plus same time not only for monitoring, even for notification purpose, triggering, right? But for triggering will be done through the SNS notification service, right? In CloudWatch, when you set up an alarm, so we select that SNS topic. That SNS topic is nothing but an email ID, and whenever we select the email ID, that particular email so will be sent to the if there is something wrong with your instances, like my instance performance is less than 75%, sorry, more than 75%, then you can trigger emails. So what are the different metrics we can set up with CloudWatch? Metrics, CPU usage, okay. Is there anything memory? I think there is nothing called memory, I guess. Do we have memory? No, there's no memory. What is that? Network. So network incoming, outgoing, and also, so what is that? Data read and write operations, right? Right. So based upon this, we can do the we can set up the CloudWatch alarms, and then we've gone through another service. So what was that? Beanstack. Yeah, Elastic Beanstack. So what is a Beanstack service? Beanstack service provides the platforms, right? I want to have a Docker platform, or else I want to have some Tomcat platform, Java platform. So Beanstack set up these platforms for us. And what's the advantage of Beanstack instances? Yes, so you don't need to set up the auto scaling manually, right? So by inbuilt, these Beanstack instances have their so auto scaling enabled. You don't need to again enable it. Right? So let's try with today. So we'll go with let's try with S3. So route 53, I don't think so we'll be able to make it, but we'll try. But I don't think so. It's not possible. But, so let's see how it goes. Depends upon the time. So we have wasted a lot of time already. But, so go with route S3 first. So S3 is an storage service. S3 is a storage service. Now, what's the purpose of storage service? So I want to store some data, something like we store the data on Google Drive, right? The same way I want to store some data on S3, sorry, on AWS and using S3 service. But what exactly the purpose, right? The purpose is, say, now when you talk about data, let's talk about two types of data. So one is an organized data, other one is unorganized data. So what do you mean by organized data? Can you say it is like an database? So database is an organized data. That means your data is stored in tables. So there are different formats, right? So the data is stored in terms of tables. Whereas unorganized data, We don't store the data in tables. We just upload the files randomly. Clear? Now, so organized data especially is used for the application purpose. You can say especially for development purpose. For example, you are a developer. You have some data to store it. And where do you store the data? Of course, on database. So when you talk about organized data, now here we talk about a service called RDS, Relational Database Services. We talk about this at the time of databases. But what do you mean by unorganized data? I have some files randomly to upload it, store the data, something like you do it on Google Drive. So this is not for application purpose. When you talk about application purpose, then as a developer, you push your data to the databases, right? That is what we call organized data. Right? So whenever we talk about unorganized data, so that is kind of example. Okay, let me give you another example. I have some application. So what kind of application that is? It's some HTML application or some web application, let's say. Now, so I'm going to upload my whole application onto S3. The whole application. Okay. So HTML means you have some web pages, also some images, you have some data. So you're going to upload the data onto S3 buckets. Now, why do you upload the data onto S3 buckets? Now, once my website is uploaded onto S3 buckets, then I will proceed with hosted. So what is hosting means? Make sure your application is available on the internet, World Wide Web, right? So I'm going to host it. So simply, this is an example. We're going to take it and then host that. How we see, how do you host it? Okay. So if you want to host it, now here we talk about Route 53. So Route 53 is called hosting service. So for example, let's say forget about this AWS. So you have a simple web application, some HTML, JavaScript web application. Okay. Then, so what do you do next? Once you have the application, then you want to host it. What do you do? What are the steps? First, you have application. That's the first step, application design. Next step is what is that? You need a domain or not? You need domain name. So how do you buy the domain names? So there's some domain providers like we have GoDaddy. Okay. Okay. So we have domain name, and once you buy the domain name, then finally you host your application. Right? You host your application. Yeah. So this is what you do. But in this case, hosting and the domain name are simply, we can say application hosting. We can do it through Route 53. I can buy a domain name. Also, I can host it through Route 53. So Route 53 is called hosting service, whereas S3 is called your storage service. So whenever you want to host an application, the application must be uploaded first, right? So once the application is uploaded, then that can be hosted. And where do you upload the application to? S3. Right? So upload the application to S3 first, and then we're going to host it through Route 53. Right? So, but let's first of all talk about few points regarding S3, and based upon the time, if time permits, we can also take Route 53. So we try to explore some options in S3, how to create S3, how to create these buckets. We'll talk about that. Okay. Then we come back to Route 53. But you understand the purpose of Route 53? Route 53 is called DNS service, domain name service. So go to first S3. S3 is for storage purpose. So which we call it scalable storage. So why do we call it scalable again? See, there is no restriction if you want to upload the data onto S3. So this is like, so kind of we can say it is elastic. So whenever you need more storage, and there will be more space allocated by the AWS. So there is no restriction. Then go with S3. So here we create a bucket. So what is a bucket? You can say bucket is like a folder, okay, where we store all the data. For example, in our example, I'm going to upload my application, web application, right? So onto S3, but on S3, I'm going to upload to and bucket. Bucket is nothing but which has your all objects stored. What are my objects means? Your files. So you can create number of buckets on S3, but there is a limit. I think the limit is 99 or 100. I think so. 99 buckets. You can create about 99 buckets. You can't create more than that. Okay. But so firstly, let's see how to create a bucket. And moreover, when you are in S3, so look at that region. Sorry. Yeah. What is the region is? Global. Can I select the regions? No. That's not possible. S3 is a global service. S3 is a global service. That means, so whether you, for example, I'm working with some Mumbai region or in some US East one. So you can be from any region. So, but on your account, whatever the buckets are created, you can see all the buckets from any other region because S3 is so global as service. So you don't need to select the regions. But so there are regions for the buckets. Now, so go with create a bucket. Sorry, back to cancel it first. Sorry. Now you see, look at this bucket. So this bucket I have not created actually. This bucket was created by Elastic Beanstalk. We have not created it. Now look at here first. We have that bucket was created under what region? Mumbai region. Now, but what is my region is global. Nothing but I can see all the buckets created on my account from any other regions. I can see that. Okay. Well, let me create a bucket.
Can you come
So give some bucket name. See, there are some bucket names you cannot create them. For example, I go with something called test bucket.
Can you please repeat about Elastic Bean bucket?
Bucket name. Okay. So this bucket name must be unique. I don't think so. You'll be able to create test bucket. You're going to get that error probably later when you create that. Okay. So AWS region. Select some region. I would go with, let's say, Mumbai region. Mumbai. So bucket settings, we talk about these settings later, not now. So this is regarding your bucket access. So you're uploading your bucket, you're uploading some data onto the bucket, but who can see the data on the bucket? So that is what is so policies. Now here we need to set up some access control. We call it access control list. So what is access control list? You can decide who can see the bucket or who can see the data in the bucket. That is access control list. It does not mean that everyone, so those who have access to my bucket, they won't be able to see the data. So I can restrict them who can see the data, who cannot see the data. We talk about that, but before that, so versioning, everything will be discussing, but just so create a bucket first. Now you see that bucket name already exists. But I don't have this bucket, right? I don't have this bucket. So why that bucket is not there? Because why I can't create it? So this is an bucket used by the AWS. There are some naming conventions, standard names, so which we cannot use them. Even though you don't have that bucket on your account, still you won't be able to do it. So I'm going to create that. So we can say that bucket names must be unique. Every bucket name, for example, you're creating a bucket. So your bucket name, my bucket name should be unique. I cannot create the same bucket if you have already created that. That's not possible. So create something like capital CAS some test 1. That's my bucket name. So Mumbai is the region. See, this region is for bucket only. Create it. So there is a bucket created under Mumbai region. Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk was created at the time of when we created Beanstalk last time, right? So at that time itself, the Beanstalk was created. So hope you attended last session. So when I created, so if you remember last session, we have created Elastic Beanstalk at that time. So you can see that Elastic Beanstalk has, so bucket has created. We have not created that. So Beanstalk, actually the purpose of Beanstalk is deployment purpose. That's the reason it has some bucket created already. Okay. Well, so go to the bucket. Now we can upload files into the bucket. So let's upload files, some random files. I'm uploading some random files. Let's go with add a file. So now the file is uploading. Just upload it. So this is successfully uploaded. That's my file. Now when I click on the file, now you see that I clicked on the file. So the file is loading. Now this is my object. Okay, this is the object. So that's what I say. What is then bucket? Bucket is used to store the object of the bucket. Now that means nothing but files. So what is this? No, that's our data. Okay, fine, not an issue. So this is an object URL. This is object URL. So see, something like you have on Google Drive, when you upload a file, every file has a unique URL, right? The same way here, this is my bucket URL, enter. So I cannot access the file. So what is the reason? The permissions. So while I was creating a bucket, right, there was something called access control list. Right? So that is regarding the permissions. The data you upload onto the S3 buckets. So this is not an say public data. That's only private. Private means I can. That means as an user. So I'm the owner of the account. I'm the owner of the bucket as well. So I can only see the data. I can see the bucket only. No one else can see this. So, but can we make it as an public available? Yes. So that's we talk about securities again. Okay. So how do you do that? So go with, first of all, bucket. This is my bucket. And then we talk about permissions. Right? So now you see that block all public access. So this is what you see when you create a bucket. One second, let me show you that again. I create a bucket again, create a bucket. When you create a bucket, block all public access, that is enabled. So the bucket cannot be accessed publicly. So it has some restrictions. But how do I make sure that I can give public access to my bucket? Go to the bucket and then change the permissions. Now, first of all, what is that? This is blocked, right? I unblock it first. Edit it, or else. So there is one more way we talk about that actually. Now, first we talk about the policy, then we talk about this block. Okay, we come back to that. So what is an bucket policy is used for? The bucket policy is used to give access to the bucket who can access it, who cannot access it. But so these policies are written in JSON script. So this is written in JSON. So apart from JSON, can we modify the policies using graphical interface options? I'm not good at writing this JSON script. Can I so modify them permissions using graphical options? That is also possible. Let me show you that. Now, anyway, I'm going with JSON only. Let me show you how it works. Now, edit the policy. Now, here we write the script. I don't know regarding the script. How do I manage it? That's okay, easy. So that's why they're providing policy generator. The policy generator is for, click on it. So these are all graphical options. Once we select these options, for these options, it will be creating an JSON script. Okay, good. So first let's select the, so was it clear what I'm doing? So very simple. So I'm trying to modify the bucket policy. How do you do that? First you are in the bucket and then permissions and then go with bucket policy, edit policies. In edit policies, go with policy generator and here you generate the policy. Now, for which policy you are creating, which service you are creating a policy? I'm creating a policy for S3 bucket. So what is the effect? So why you are creating a policy? I'm creating a policy whether you want to allow it or deny it. So the file which we have it on S3 bucket, right? The file which we have it on S3 bucket, what kind of permissions you want to provide in? Whether you want to allow the users to access it or deny the users. That is what is the permission. I want allow the users to read my file. So go with allow and then principal. Principal means, so I want to have bucket all the objects of my bucket. So users can read all the objects of my bucket. That is why I'm going with star. Then, so service is already selected anyway. You cannot select it since we already have selected that. So then actions. So what actions? So what actions? So there are different actions. Now let me show you. First action is, I go with, so get object policy. Get object, let's say. What is a get object policy? Get object is for, so see there are some options like you might have heard about them in some other kind of programming languages. Put and then get. So what are these objects? When we use put, when we use get, put is nothing but so for write access, get is nothing for read access. Now I'm going with the option called get object. So what is get object means? I'm providing for my objects within the bucket, I'm providing only get object. The objects of that bucket can be readable. That is get object policy. So that is get object. Then you have also put object. So what is put object is for? This is for write. That means objects in the bucket can be modified. That is put object. Okay. Then, for example, I want to give some access. Delete object. Now objects can be deleted, or else I want to delete the bucket itself. So you can go with that. I think they have option called bucket delete bucket. So you can restrict the user at particular object or else as an whole bucket as well. Okay. Well, so for the time being, I would like to go with so get object policy. just looking for get object. Okay, go with that. Now, then comes ARN. So what is Amazon resource name? So every resource you create on AWS, it has a unique ARN name. So for example, I'm creating EC2 instance. So AWS provides a unique ARN name for that. Okay. So where is the, now this is the bucket, right? This is my object. This is my bucket. I mean, for that bucket, there is an ARN name. What is the ARN name of this? ARN AWS S3 and then your bucket name. This is an Amazon representation. So this is how Amazon represents each and every bucket. Sorry, each and every resource. So they have ARN representation. Now, so this is what is ARN representation. So we must enter the ARN name over here. So what was the name? That was the ARN name. Let me copy that. That's ARN name. Okay. So hope that was clear. Very simple. Amazon resource name ARN, AWS, on AWS. It is what is the service is S3, and what is the bucket name? That's a bucket name. But bucket has objects, right? Then what object? Slash, and then you can mention the object name, that means your file name, but I want to provide all objects, so go with star. Now, so go with it, that is an object name, ARN name, I mean, and then once it is done, just go with add a statement. Okay, and then generate a policy. There is my JSON script is generated. Okay, so you don't need to have scripts in JSON if you want to create this policy. Copy that, and then back to the bucket policy. Under this, just copy that, and then where is that save changes. Okay, so this is what is, you don't have permissions to edit bucket offset policy. So what is that option? Where do we do that from? Again, back to the bucket. You understand the error? See, I'm trying to change the bucket policies, but first of all, bucket is not allowing me to change the policies. So why is it so? Under policies, you cannot modify the bucket policies because of that is blocked. Now this is loading. Now see that is blocked. You unblock it, uncheck it, edit that, yeah, unblock it. So well, so save it. Now just type confirm. Okay, so back to the permissions and now edit again. So just save it, and again copy the same thing, copy that, and then save changes. So successfully edited. Now it has public access. So objects can be accessed publicly now. So back to the objects in it. Click on the objects. Now open the object. Object has a URL, right? That's object URL. Open it. Now I can open the bucket. I can open the object. That's an empty document. That's different. But previously, when we were trying to access it, there was some error. What was the error? Access denied. Now I can open the file. The content might be empty content. That's different. That's okay. So, but I can open the file. We don't have any permission issues. Okay. Let me just try that again for another bucket. Let me show you another example. create a bucket, give some bucket name. So while you create bucket itself, you can unblock the permissions. You can do it. So we talk about this ACL. We'll come back to that point. But anyway, just versioning. So what is versioning? I think you people know what is versioning. Like we all know regarding VCS, version control tools like GitHub, right? So for example, I have a file. That's a file. I mean, new text document. That's an object. So I just modify the document. Again, I have uploaded the document. Then, so it is going to maintain the earlier version before it was modified, even after this is modified. That is what is version. Okay. But so create it. So what is that? Acknowledge it. Okay. Fine. So there it is. So upload it. Upload some file, or you can create file here itself. You can add files. Create a file. And just upload it. Okay. You can upload any documents, or else let's go with let's write some simple HTML script. So very basic HTML script. I'm not writing some complicated one. HTML open, HTML close, and then some H1. H1 stands for head. Let's say hello. That switch. Hello. And while I save it, file save as. Save that file has something like home.html. That's it. Home.html. That's a file. So that is my HTML file. Anyway, now I'm going to upload that file. Okay. So let's try that. Go with upload another file. Upload and then upload that file. Okay. So just upload it. So now back to the object. So what is this is my object. So can I access this file? Access denied. So that is not possible. Right. So moving on to now. So back to the permissions. We change the permissions now. Then bucket policy, policy generator, and select the service. It's loading. S3 bucket, allow, and then star, and then actions. You can go with multiple actions. I can go with, let's say, so get object is the minimum requirement. Get object. Okay. So if you want to go with modify the files, you can go with put object. And then ARN name. What was the ARN name? So that's ARN name. So what's the representation? Representation is so slash and then your objects. Okay. and generator, there it is, add statement, yeah, generate policy. That's a policy. Copy the policy. That is. You can see, so very easy to understand this JSON script. Yeah, effect is allow, and then your resources. That's it. Yeah, save changes. What is that? Unexpected error occurred. API response. Action does not apply to resources in statement. So what is that? Action does not apply. Just a second. Let's go with. Is it rejecting because of 1 second? Policy contains invalid data. Okay, fine. And then, so where are the objects? Objects, go to objects. Now you can try these objects. Where are the objects? Yeah, that's an object. Check this object. Connection interrupted. So there is your file. Anyway, so simple. Now let's see. So do you remember when I was creating a bucket? So I have enabled the versioning concept for this. Let's say the version is working, so or not. Back to the bucket. First, you see, if you want to see the list of all the versions, go with list versions. Okay. But anyway, so enable that first. It's enabled. Now I just back to the, where is that object? 1 second. Objects. Okay. Where is the upload option? Refresh. Actions. Here itself, right? There is upload. Right? Now upload file. Now I'm going to upload the same file again. So with same name, same file, but little modifications. What modifications? I would say this is my HTML file. I'm trying to modify the file and then save the file. Save as. Okay. So home.html. So save it again. Then upload the same file now. Add a file. Upload it. So we have uploaded same file after a new modification. Close it. Now list versions. Now we can see the version for this. So this is the latest version and this is the previous version. Okay. So that is list version. It is going to list all the versions. And then back to permissions again. Scroll down. Then you have access control list. So what is this access control list? What is ACL then? So for example, this is my account, let's say. So this is my account, right? Okay, that's my account. Now I have created that bucket. I'm uploading objects into the bucket. But there is another AWS account user and he wants to modify my bucket. So what is the reason? Let me give you an example. So we have a team. Okay, we have a team. So in my team, so I'm the owner of my AWS account. So what do you mean by owner? I have the full access to AWS account. I can create buckets. I can upload the data into the buckets, and objects can be modified. I can do anything. But so there is another team member. Let's say so some user one is also my team member. Okay, he's going to log into the same AWS account with different credentials, with his own credentials. But he is able to see my account. We'll talk about this securities in tomorrow's session. Things will be clear. But as of now, understand the scenario. So there is another user from my same team, and he is able to access the same bucket. That means he can modify the bucket. Yeah. But I want to restrict that who can see my bucket. So there it is. So permissions to other AWS accounts. For example, you have an AWS account. I also have an AWS account. Now, so you want to modify my bucket. So I can give you access. Like, do you remember in the concept of copy images or copy snapshots? We can copy them to other AWS accounts. Do you remember that option? The same thing. Okay. So I can make you as owner of my bucket. I can give you read access. I can give you write access. So because since we are all working as in a team, so I will give you access to modify my bucket. I don't give that access to other users, other AWS accounts. So that is regarding securities. That is in tomorrow's session we'll talk about detail. But in simple example, if there is another AWS account, he wants to modify that, I can give access to it. So how is that possible? That is what is access control list. Now you go with edit. And then as an owner, I have all the access, of course. So your AWS account, I'm the owner. Well, then who else can see this? Public access list 3. Okay. But instead of doing it, I like to go with add in. So granting. So which user? Now that is called eternal canonical ID. That is not AWS account ID. So you remember the AWS account ID? Where do you get the account ID from? That's AWS account ID. But this is not account ID. That is enter canonical ID. So what is that canonical ID? So this canonical ID is used only for the purpose of bucket policy. So you are a user, you have a AWS account, and you want to see my bucket. Then I must provide your canonical ID in this. Then you can see my bucket. But what is that canonical ID? So how do you get the canonical ID? You can get the canonical ID from, I think that's from IAM, I guess. Well, let me show you. IAM is for access management. So if you create users, all the user information can be found in IAM. Just a second. I get that user canonical ID. That's from users. Just a second. Security credentials, I think so. Can you see the canonical ID? 1 second. Or under, just a second, looking for that ID, canonical ID. It's not there. Can we see it from the account settings? I think so. Once that is correct. Account settings. You can see the canonical ID forgot that option actually. 1 second. Credentials, not from credentials. No, that's not the one. Settings. It's access reports now. Just a second. That's from account settings, but where is that option? S3. Canonical ID. Stop. My security credentials. Account ID, my AWS account ID. And security credentials, of course, we are there. Where is that? That option is been somewhere here in this token. Provider security. Just a second. My security credentials, of course, we are under my security credentials. Just a second. My security credentials. You see that my security credentials? Security. Has it been changed or moved to something? Should be somewhere here. I'm sure about that. Endpoints. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. But you can do it from here itself. I'm just checking there. Anyway, so still we are under same IAM. That's okay. So this is another way I think so. That go with security credentials. Okay. And under security credentials, have account identifier. That is your canonical ID. And then back to IAM. So where is it? IAM? Not IAM, sorry. Yeah, there it is. Enter the canonical ID. And then, so that user, see, but this must be a different user, not the same user, a different user, and give some access. What you can do, you can read. So, see, you can control at object level or else at bucket ACL level. So, what is bucket ACL then? It's not bucket, this is bucket ACL. What is bucket ACL? Yes, you can control the list. See, if I go with, let's say, write access, you can add more users to the same bucket, right? So that is what is that access. Now you can just save the changes, but so that must be a different account canonical ID. Okay, so I cannot add myself to same, so it must be a different canonical ID. So if you have two different accounts, but how do you create two different accounts? We'll talk about that in tomorrow's session. Okay, so now you can add more branches, and then those users will be added. So that is useful, especially in the purpose of IAM. So we talk about IAM in tomorrow's session. So this ACL is somewhat related to IAM, Identity Access Manager. So, but anyway, so is it clear? The permissions, how do you change the permissions? You can change the permissions at object level or else bucket level. And then you have even ACL. ACL is for read and write policies for other AWS accounts. So what's the difference between permissions versus ACL?
Permissions related to our account.
So objects in that particular bucket can be accessed by, you want to make it public, you can make it public for the objects. But whereas if objects, you want them to be appear for the particular AWS account, you can go with that ACL. So that is access control list for the AWS accounts only, not for everyone. I mean, for AWS accounts, if you want to make it like everyone access, that is your bucket access. That's the difference. Now, so back to the properties. So this example, I'm going to upload a simple HTML file that is kind of my website. Okay. Then once that once a web page or website is uploaded into my S3 bucket, then I'm going to host it. How? Through Route 53. But if you want to host an web page or an application through Route 53, and that application or that bucket, so where we going to upload the application to the buckets. Buckets will be having my all the application files or all the objects of my application. Then, so those objects or that bucket can be hosted. So if you want to provide an bucket has an hosted permission through Route 53, first of all, the bucket needs to be given access at the bucket level that can be hosted as a website. How it is done? Scroll down. You have website hosting, static website hosting. So we edit this and then enable it, host as a static website. So this can be hosted through Route 53. If this is not checked, then the bucket cannot be hosted through Route 53. Okay, so save it and you can enter some information. We'll talk about them in tomorrow again. So this is kind of index document. What is index document? It's like home page. Whenever you have so website loaded, so what do you see there? You have some home page, right? So what is the home page you want to see? Give some home page name. If you have any home pages in your, so like landing page, you can say. For websites, you have landing pages, right? The home page, and whenever you have some error pages, give some error message to the user or the page, whatever you want to load it when there is an error. So let's say error dot some HTML page, right? So, and then this bucket can be hosted through Route 53. Yeah. But how do you do that? There are some steps. So this is not the way how you do it, but I've given just an overall, just an idea. But if you want to create an object, sorry, if you want to create a bucket first and you want to post it as an website through Route 53, there are some steps. What are the steps? We'll talk about them in detail tomorrow. But so for every bucket, whether you want to post it, so that option must be enabled first. What is that? Static website posting. Otherwise, it cannot be posted. So let me give you an idea. I'm not going to show you all these things in detail because we don't have enough time. So go to Route 53. So this is an DNS service. So whenever you want to host an website, what do you do first? You need a domain name. You buy the domain. From where do you buy the domain? And since I'm on AWS, so do I need to buy the domain from outside? Third-party providers? So Route 53 provides both options. You can buy the domain plus you can host it. But whereas if you go with outside, you are two different things. You buy the domain first and then you host it. But you need to have application available, everything on third-party hosted service. But here we can do everything from AWS service. Well, so moving on to first, go with domains, registered domain. So registered domain means first you search for the domain name you are looking for. So what is the domain name? Let's say capitalinfo.com. Sorry, first register, click on the register first. Say. So there you enter. Then check for the availability. Something like this. Check for the availability. If that is available, you can pay and then you can buy. So that's not that, but we have something else. Some other domains. So capitalinfo.info, so .org, we have other kind of domains. Now you can buy them. So you just add it to the cart and then pay for it. And then that domain will be registered under your name. Okay. And once the domain is registered, the final step is I want to host it. So where is your application? In S3, right? Where is your domain? On Route 53. Now the question is, how do I link that S3 with my bucket? Is it clear? So for example, so what is the domain name? Let's say my domain is capitalinfo.info. Let's say something. This is my domain. So whenever this domain is entered in the URL, what has to be loaded? My relative home pages or any other pages must be clear. But how these pages will be loaded? So where are those pages? Where are those objects in S3 bucket? Now the question is how this URL routes the traffic or loads the pages from Route 53 to S3. Your Route 53 plus S3 bucket, they must be linked. So this is what is hosting. We talk about that in tomorrow's session. So tomorrow, as soon as we come in, so first we'll try to finish off this Route 53, and then we'll move on to IAM, which is security related services. Okay. So now is it clear the purpose of this Route 53? You can buy the domain, same time you can also host it. Okay. So, but this is all like paid thing. Domain name, you just need to pay for it. Once you buy the domain, and you can start hosting it. So there is nothing free here. It's all paid. Sorry.
FreeHub website. It's also free service.
Yeah, see, there are a lot of providers and hosting services available in the market. They provide for free as well. Okay, GoDaddy is not for free, so it's a paid service. Okay, so there are some domain providers, they can host it, but the problem with them is you cannot get your required domain. So whatever domain name they provide, you must go with the domain. Right. So that's the difference between paid versus and then free. Well, there is a difference. So just for today, so you can try, just go to the document which is available in the Google Drive, scenarios document in AWS. So go to the document. I don't have the document. That is the different system. But so go to the document and then look into the scenarios. And in that same S3 Route 53, you practice only S3 related scenarios, and then Route 53 scenarios you can practice it tomorrow. Okay, only practice them. Or it's simply very simple. Just create some buckets and make them accessible for public, and also try to go with how that bucket can be given access to other AWS accounts. Okay, canonical ID. Okay, try that, and also try that versioning. How do we enable the version? Okay. So, yeah. Any questions? Yeah. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.